Hey guys, Jared here, and today we're going to be working on how to load your own personal images into a collection view inside of your own application. This is done in something like Instagram or a bunch of other applications that allow you to pick your own images. So that is what we're going to be working on today. So let's go ahead and get started. So the way we get started is, of course, opening up Xcode, create a new Xcode project, and you can call this whatever you want. This will be a single view application. Go ahead, click next. Product name, you could of course call this whatever you want, as I said. This will be a collection view, as I'm going to call it. Language, Swift, devices, universal. This will work on any device, no matter what the size, because we're programming it that way. Then go ahead, say next, and then create. And now we're going to dive into the programming part of this. So now inside of this is where you're going to set up your collection view. So first off, we have our view controller right here. So let's go ahead, take this view controller, and let's go ahead, delete that. Then we're going to add our collection view controller onto our scene. So that's this yellow one right down here, collection view controller. So go ahead, take that, click and drag that over to your scene like so. And inside of here is embedded your collection view, and this is where you're going to be adding things. Now inside of your collection view, you have the collection cell. Now with every collection cell, this is what you're going to be putting your image into. So we're going to be programming the size of this and also adding an image into that. But in order to add an image into this, we also need to add an image view. So let's go ahead, click and drag that image view right onto our scene like so. And we're going to make it so it fills the whole cell. Like so. Now with the sizing of this, it doesn't really matter what you do at this point because we're going to be working on that later, but let's go ahead, take this image view right here, and let's add some constraints to this. So in the hierarchy right here, we can go ahead, right click or control click and drag from this over to the collection view cell, and we're going to go ahead and say equal widths, equal heights, center vertically and center horizontally in the container. So this means that we're just taking that image view and we're conforming it to whatever size that we want for our collection view cell. So we're setting the widths and the height equal to each other, and then we're just centering it within that cell. That's what that all means. So let's go ahead, hit return, and there you have it. So now we can go ahead, add some images onto this. Now the way we do this is, let's go ahead, go over here to our viewcontroller.swift. Let's delete everything inside of that. And then for our class right here, I'm going to keep it the same name. That way it just still edits this collection view controller right here. We'll set that up in just a minute. But we can go over here to our viewcontroller.swift, and we're going to give this the super class instead of just a normal UI view controller. This is a UI collection view controller, like so. And so now we have our class set up with our view controller. Let's go ahead, connect this up to our main.storyboard view controller that we have right here. So we need to go ahead, click on the top bar of this. We're going to go over here to our identity inspector right over here, and we're going to give this the class of our view controller. So that is the same thing that we just have over here on our viewcontroller.swift. So now anything that we add inside of this viewcontroller.swift will then edit this view that we created right here. And now let's go ahead and add some things onto our viewcontroller.swift so we can edit that view. So first off, we're just going to go ahead and say import our photos, as you can see. And basically, this holds everything that you need to access the photos that we want. So let's go ahead and create a new function, and this is going to grab all those photos. So I'm going to just go ahead and say func, and we're going to go ahead and give this the name of grab photos. Open close parentheses, open curly bracket, close curly bracket, like so. Now inside of here, we want to create an image manager. So this is going to manage what kind of images we pull out of that photos library that we have. So let's go ahead and say let our img manager equal ph image manager dot, and then this is going to be default manager, like so. And that's it for the image manager at the moment. We will be working with that some more in the future, but let's go ahead and first off, let's go ahead and create a new, and this will be our request options. So this is essentially like, what kind of request do you need? How are you going to make this request? What kind of photos are you grabbing? This is what is inside of these request options right here. So we're just going to go ahead and say let request options equal ph image request options, and then open close parentheses, and we'll set up the options right now. So we're going to go ahead and say our request options dot synchronous, as you can see right here. So basically what this means is, do you want all of these coming in at once, or do you want them to be asynchronously coming in? And you can go ahead and read all about that. If you hold option, you can read what everything means about it. And yeah, so there you have it. So we have request options dot synchronous will be equal to, and we're going to set this equal to true in this case, as I think synchronous actually works better when you're grabbing all the images. So just keep that in mind. Now we need to go ahead and say request options dot, and then this will be your delivery mode, will be equal to, and you can say dot, and essentially what your delivery mode is, how do you want these to be delivered? Do you want them to be the fastest way possible? You don't care about image quality whatsoever, which is probably not the best idea. So, but you can also do the high quality format or the opportunistic format. Opportunistic basically means it's a good balance of high quality image, also while you're trying to get it fast. And you can do whatever you want. I feel like having high quality format. That's just because I want the best looking images inside of that. You might disagree with that, but you can put it whatever you want. And that does it for our request options. Now let's go ahead and we're going to create a fetch options. So with our fetch options here, this is pretty self-explanatory as well. How do you want to fetch these? Do you want them to be sorted by a date? Or what do you want them to be sorted by? Or how do you want to grab them? Stuff like that. So we're going to be sorting it by the creation date. And that's what we're going to be adding inside of these fetch options. But first off, we need to go ahead and say our fetch options will be equal to ph fetch options. Like so, and then open close parentheses. And then now the only variable that we're going to add in here is fetch options dot, and then we're going to go ahead and say sort descriptors, and we're going to set this equal to ns sort descriptor, open parentheses, and inside of here you want this one that says the key and ascending. So with our key right here, how do you want these photos that are coming in to be sorted? And I want them to be sorted by the creation date. And you want to make sure that it is lowercase c, it's all camel case. So just make sure it's lowercase c creation and then capital D date, like so. And then with our ascending, we can go ahead and set this equal to true or false, depending whether or not you want the first image to be the first image that shows up or the last image to be the first image that shows up. It's all depending on what you want. I feel like ascending true. Actually, I want my last image that I took to be showed first. So I'm going to say ascending will be equal to false, and we'll worry about this in just a minute just to see if that works. And now it's giving me this error because it says cannot assign value of type ns sort descriptor without the brackets. So let's go ahead and just add some brackets right onto that. And basically what this would allow you to do is we have sort descriptors. So if you wanted to have another way to sort things, you could say comma and then ns sort descriptor and sort it out via another way as well. So just keep that in mind. And then now that we have these options and the request options and the image manager, let's go ahead and grab some images. So first off, we need to go ahead and create a new variable called our fetch result. Let our fetch result, and we're going to say colon, this will be equal to a ph fetch result, and we're going to go ahead and set this equal to our ph asset dot, and then we're going to go ahead and say fetch assets with media type, as you can see, like so. So we have fetch assets with media type. What kind of media type are we wanting to grab? Well, you can grab your image, or you can grab your audio or your video. We're of course going to be grabbing our image, so I'm just going to keep that as that. And then for our options right here, of course we have our fetch options. So we're just going to go ahead, plug that right in there, and we're good to go. And actually this should be if let fetch result. So this is an if statement right here actually. So we're going to say if let fetch result equal all this stuff right here, then we're going to do the stuff in here. So basically if this stuff in here isn't empty, then we're actually going to use this fetch result. That's what we're just determining with this if statement. And then now with our fetch result inside of our if statement, we want to determine, has this person taken photos yet? If they haven't taken any photos, then of course we have something wrong. So we can go ahead and say if, and then this will be our fetch result.count is greater than 0, meaning that the person has actually taken a photo, then we can do this stuff here. And then after this if statement, you can add an else statement if you want. I'm just going to go ahead and say print, and then this will be you got no photos. So if you have this else statement right here, this means you don't have any photos inside of your simulator, or you don't have any photos inside of your iPhone. So we're going to go ahead and use that. So we have print you got no photos if we don't have any photos. And now inside of this if statement right here, this is where we're going to be working with our fetch result. So if we do have images, we're going to be using that. So we can go ahead and say for I in 0 dot dot, and then this will be less than our fetch result dot count. Then we're going to do this stuff. So this is essentially cycling through all the photos, and we're going to be adding it into our own personal array with all the photos. So I'll set that up in just a minute, but let's go ahead, continue on, and let's actually get the photo so that we can put it into the array. So this is where the IMG manager comes in. So we can go ahead and say IMG manager dot request image for asset, this one right here. You can request anything really. If you have image data that you want or a player item, we're of course going to be using the image for the asset. So request image for asset, and then of course our asset will be equal to our fetch result dot object at index, and then of course we have this I value right now because we're cycling through all the photos that are inside of that. So we have our fetch result that of course has photos inside of it, dot object at index, and this is of course going to be our I value. And then we're going to say as a ph asset, like so. And then now we have our CG size and our target size. So what kind of size are you targeting? What kind of image size do you want? Well, this is where this is all determined. So you can go ahead and say CG size, open parentheses. You can get the width, which I think is good if we put it at 200, comma, and then we want the height as well. And then I'm going to set this equal to 200 as well. You can of course change that all you want. If you have bigger cells, this is where you would change that. This is going to determine the image quality coming out of this ph asset that you have right there. So just keep that in mind. So if you have bigger images that you want to set that a little bit higher, and then you'll get better image quality. We're setting this to a width of 200 and a height of 200 because we have small little cells, and that's what we're working with. And then with our content mode, you can go ahead and say dot, and then you can pick what kind of images do you want coming in. Do you want them to be aspect fill, aspect fit, centered, bottom left, scaled? Do whatever you want. I'm going to go with aspect fill. It's going to fill the scene. And then with our options here, this is of course our request options that we just created right up here. So you can go ahead and plug that right in there as well. And then with our result handler, let's go ahead and say open curly bracket, close curly bracket. And then with this, you're going to go ahead and we have our image, comma, and then this will be our error, and then in, like so. Alright, so to sum this all up, we have our ph fetch result right here, in which we have ph assets coming in. So what we want to do with those ph assets is convert them over to images, which we can then put into our collection view. So that is what we did with this image manager.request image for asset. We cycled through all the assets that are inside of our fetch result.object at index, and now we're going to go ahead, take that, and we convert it into an image, and now let's go ahead and add this into an array. So we're going to go ahead, go up here, we're going to say var our image array will be equal to open bracket, close bracket, and this will be an array of UI images, and then open close parentheses at the end like so. And then now down here inside of this we have our image as we're cycling through all the images, and we can go ahead and say image array dot append, and we are going to append that new element of our image that we have right here. And we are good to go. Let's go ahead and add that exclamation point, and it wants a self.image array, so just go ahead and add that in there as well. And we are good to go. Now let's go ahead and load these into our collection view. So now we can go ahead and say collection view, number of items in section. And of course, with the number of items in section here, we want this to be returning our image array value right here. So we're going to go ahead and say return our image array.count. And then now with this collection view, again, we want to access that image view that's inside of each of the cells. So we can go down here, and this will be our cell for row at index path, or cell for item at index path actually. So just go ahead, take that, and we're good to go there as well. So with the cell for item at index path, we are going to be adding those images onto each of the cells. So we can go ahead and say var cell will be equal to, and this will be our collection view.dq reusable cell with identifier, this one right here. And of course our identifier, we're going to go ahead and set this equal to capital C ELL, like so. And then for the index path right here, this is of course just going to be the index path that is actually created right up here. And now that we have the cell, let's go ahead and say return our cell, and we're good to go as well. And now let's go ahead and access that image view that's inside of each of these cells. So we can go over here to our main.storyboard, click on the image view, make sure you're clicking on the image view in the hierarchy right here, and then we can go over here to our attributes inspector, and with the tag here, we're going to go ahead and set that equal to 1. And we're good to go there. So let's go ahead, go up here to our viewcontroller.swift, and we can go ahead and say var image view will be equal to, and we're going to set this equal to cell.view with tag, like so. And then of course our tag that we just set is 1. So image view will be equal to cell.view with tag. And then lastly, it really doesn't know that this view with tag is actually going to be an image view, so you can go ahead and say as a UI image view, like so. And then we can go ahead lastly and say image view.image will be equal to will be equal to, and we're going to go ahead and set this equal to our image array, like so, and then for, so open bracket, close bracket, the index path dot row. So as we are creating all of these cells, we are grabbing the image for it accordingly. And then now also with this cell right here, we did an identifier. Now we didn't set that up in our main.storyboard yet, so go ahead, go back over here, and we're going to click on our collection view cell, go over here to your identifier, and we're going to set this equal to capital C-E-L-L, as we did in our viewcontroller.swift. And there you have it. Now if you're getting these warnings right here, just go ahead, and it's saying you should replace that var with a let, so go ahead and do that. And that just gets rid of those annoying warnings. And one last thing before we build and run this, we have this image view right here, and we want to make sure that it is the initial view controller over here inside of our attributes inspector. So we have is initial view controller checkmarked. And lastly, before we build and run this, we need to go ahead and put in our view did load function, like so, and then we're going to go ahead and inside of this, we're going to call this function called grab photos. So we're going to go ahead, put that in there, and now let's go ahead, build and run this, and we're good to go. And here we are, we have this collection view would like to access your photos coming up. So go ahead, click OK. It's going to access my photos. Now I had to build and run it again, and this was for the reason that we have our view did load right here, that we are grabbing the photos as soon as we called that view did load. So there wasn't any photos present when we first did it. Now one thing you can do is inside of this else statement right here, if you have this else statement going off, you can go ahead and say self.collectionView.reload data, and that's going to allow you to restart your scene after you click that OK button, and you should be good to go. Otherwise, if they accept it once, then they can exit out of the application, and then it'll be ready for the next time that they do it. That's not the best way to do it, so I hope this way works. But let's go ahead, continue on, and we should be good to go. Now one thing you notice is these images are like scrunched up, so I don't really want that to happen. So let's go over here to our main.storyboard. I'm going to go over here to my image view. I'm going to click on the mode right here over here in my attributes inspector with the mode right here. We're going to go ahead and say aspect fill, and that's just going to make it so it's some nice cleaner images coming into that collection view. And let's go ahead and check it out. And here we have it. So this is a lot nicer looking of images. They're the right aspect ratio. So that is what I wanted. Now another thing I wanted to do here is with our images that are coming in, you'll see that there's this black space in the middle of all the images, and that's not really nice when in terms of like Instagram and all that. So let's go ahead and fix that by going over here to our viewcontroller.swift, and we're going to go ahead up here inside of our class, we're going to create a new delegate. So we're going to go ahead and say comma, this will be our UI collection view flow layout, or delegate flow layout right there. So we have a UI collection view delegate flow layout, and this is going to make it so you can allow things to look a little bit nicer inside of your application. So we can go down here and let's go ahead, create a new function, and then this will be the function of our collection view, so collection size, and you want to make it and you want to make sure it's this last one right here. It cuts it off at the end, but you'll see that these two start with an RE. You want to make sure you have this last one right here. So go ahead, put that in there. And now what it's wanting in here is what size do you want for your collection view? That's what it's asking. So we can go ahead and put in here that I want the size of the return value of, and let's go ahead and determine what kind of size we want. So let's go ahead and say let our width equal, and we're going to go ahead and set this equal to our collection view dot frame dot width, and divide that by 3. I want there to be 3 images displayed per row. Now if you want it to be divided by 4, you can go ahead and do that, but I'm saying divided by 3. And then with this return value here, we're going to go ahead and say return the value of our CG size, open parentheses, and we're going to do this one that has width and height. Now of course I want these to be square, so we don't really need to worry about the height. So we can go ahead and put in our width, and for our height right here we can go ahead and put in our width as well. So square. Now let's go ahead, build around this, and let's see where we're at with that. It should be looking a little bit nicer. Now as you can see, there's still that black bar in the middle, but the sizing of it is actually proper. But the way we fix this is, let's go ahead and disable all those little buffers that you have in between all of the images. As you can see, there's like thin little black stripes in between the height and the width. Now that's the cause of this problem. So let's go ahead and delete those. Collection view, and this one will be our minimum. It's pretty hard to see because it's at the edge of this, but it's collection view layout, and then this one will be minimum line spacing for section at index. And then we also want the collection view, and then we also want to get the other minimum. So collection minimum, and it's just going to be this other one right there. So we have minimum interim spacing for section at index as well. So with this first one right here, we're just going to go ahead and return the value of 1.0, and then we're going to also return the value of 1.0 here as well. So that means we're allowing the spacing between each of the images to be 1 pixel. And let's go ahead, check this out, and see where we're at. Now, as you can see, we are getting very little spacing between each of these images, but we're still not done because there's still that black space in the middle. Now, the way we fix this is we have that width again. Now, we have those 1 pixels in between each of those images, so we can go ahead and say let our width equal, this will be our collectionView.frame.width divided by 3, and then we're going to go ahead and say minus 1, just to see where that puts us. And now we should have it that that middle image actually shows. So let's check it out. And there you have it. So now we have all of these images coming in here with a thin black bar in the middle, and they're just nicely spaced out. So there you have it. That's how you do an Instagram-like loading up of the images inside of your view. Now again, one last thing I want to point out is if you say let width collectionView.frame.width and you just say divide by 4 or 5, that's going to be how many images are loading up into each of those cells coming in. So let's go ahead and check that out. And there you have it. So now I have 4 images coming in all in the same row. And there you have it. So that is how you load up all your personal images into a UI collection view using Swift in Xcode. And if you guys want to see a part 2 of how to take this collection view a little bit further, and when you actually click on an image, it loads into a giant image view, let me know by hitting that like button down below. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you did, be sure to hit that like button down below. It lets me know that you guys want more of these Swift tutorials. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.